Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Building Our EV Product Out in the Open. Over the last couple of weeks, we've been talking to a lot of people who are helping us put the product together, some potential partners. But today, we actually have an existing partner of ours, someone we've worked with for a good 2.5 years on all of our repairs and repair networks. Please, I'm welcome to introduce Josh from AAMC. Josh, why don't you take a second, tell us who you are, what you do at AAMC, and for many people, what AAMC actually is and how they fit into the overall insurance value chain.
Thanks for the introduction, Andrew. I appreciate it. I'm the National Assessing Manager here. In my role, I look after AAMC's light motor assessing function nationally. A bit about myself, I suppose, as well as having worked in the motor insurance industry for about 20 years, I've actually got a background in the motor repair space and more specifically in smash repairs. As far as AAMC goes, we're a supplier of vehicle assessing and accident management services to the insurance sector. We've got a national footprint and have assessors and technical experts across all states of Australia. Related to that is in our role as insurance assessors, we manage a range of vehicles through the accident and repair process. I suppose in our role as accident assessors, we manage a range of vehicles through the accident and repair process and maintain some close connections with the vehicle repair industry, which in recent times has expanded to include repairers who work with electric vehicles.
So break it down for the normal driver, right? So your specific role in the value chain is the assessment of the vehicle, and then is it the actual repair and the mechanic that I take it to, or how do you guys manage them?
AAMC are insurance assessors primarily. What we'll do, we'll work with the repair network to have your vehicle repaired to a safe and pre-accident condition following an accident.
So that means that you guys are the ones that are talking on the phone. It's the ones that are managing the hire car, where it's repaired. Do you guys actually talk to the service center, or are they your centers yourself?
So we don't run any service centers ourselves, but as part of that accident management process, our assessors and technical experts will engage the repair network to ensure that the vehicles are repaired to an appropriate standard for an appropriate price following an accident.
How many shops in your network?
At the moment, we've got a couple of hundred shops. This is servicing all types of vehicles across all states and territories in Australia. In terms of EV-specific repair shops, we have coverage in each and every state other than the Northern Territory.
Let's just talk about what are the common maintenance and repair things that you guys are seeing happening to EVs at the moment.
Whilst an EV is electronically quite complex, they tend to have fewer moving parts and simpler mechanical systems when compared with a traditional internal combustion engine vehicle. As a result, they generally need less maintenance and tend to have fewer repair issues on a day-to-day basis. That said, there are certainly still some maintenance considerations that an EV owner needs to be mindful of and aware of. As with a vehicle with an internal combustion engine, EVs need your standard regular maintenance on brakes, tyres and wiper blades, as well as regular checks for corrosion with the body panels and lubrication to make sure that the body panel hinges open and close appropriately and your bonnet and your boot are opening smoothly. I suppose the more EV-specific aspects of maintenance are battery health, and while that's not an issue for newer vehicles, over time the battery's capacity can degrade, which will obviously have an adverse effect on the vehicle's range and performance in general. The electric motors are pretty durable components and don't need much in the way of maintenance. However, I think as with any system involving moving parts, it's important that the owner has regular inspections completed so that any minor issues can be ironed out and addressed before they develop into more serious problems.
So what my dad told me when I was first driving was you got to take your car in for a service every year or every 15,000 Ks. Is that still the case?
The service intervals for an EV are a little bit different. They vary model to model and manufacturer to manufacturer. Less maintenance involved than the old internal combustion engine would have been. Something interesting in terms of maintenance, and certainly something that differs from a standard internal combustion engine vehicle, is just like your iPhone, your electric vehicle needs to have its software continually updated. So referring back to that iPhone example, we get a new operating system flashed out to our phones every month or so, it seems. The EV has those similar updates just to make sure that the systems are all running to their full potential.
And is that something I can do at home, or is that something that we need professionals to help us with?
No, you definitely need to engage the professionals to do that. As I understand, there are some OEMs that can flash updates out to the network at large, but it's my understanding that most of the time that needs to be returned to an OEM to have that update completed.
When we actually get into a crash, and we're talking about the repair itself, where traditionally you guys would come into play, general understanding is that the repair on EVs are higher.
So Thatcham Research in the UK actually completed a study into EV repair costs earlier this year. What they found was that repairs to EVs are typically about 25% more expensive than a standard petrol engine vehicle. Some reasons for that: in general, the cars have more tech. There are more components that build up the car specifically.
But Josh, what I've seen in some of them is that the tech is so much more expensive. You have tech in new cars, you don't have them in old cars. Like, how does that change the price?
Look, a really good example is, say, something like a Hyundai Iconic, where you have a door mirror on a standard mum and dad type vehicle. You'd be looking at $400 or $500 to replace that particular component. The Iconic part is more like $3,000. So just for a door mirror alone there, which is a relatively commonly replaced item in the event of a crash, it's certainly going to contribute to a higher cost.
And how are they able to keep the price down to $300 or $400 in your old mom and pop Toyota?
There's a number of reasons for that. With vehicles that have an established position within the market, we've got alternate supply chains. So in addition to the OEM brand new parts that are available, we've got parts that come through alternate supply chains, grey market or parallel market parts. Also, we've got a good bank of recycled parts that are available to fit to vehicles. That's not an option on EVs at this point in time, just because of the fact that they're new to the market and that availability hasn't built out as yet.
So what you're saying on my new Ioniq, my only option is to buy a new genuine part that costs $4,000, but to buy for my mom's Toyota, right, I can buy a generic part or even get an old replacement recycled part, and they can be thrown in there pretty quickly.
That's right, yeah.
So tell me about the guys working in the shop. Like, what's training like? Do you have quite a few people that are trained up to do electric vehicles, or how's that going on?
I'm told that the OEM training is very good, but it is quite complex and often requires that the technicians travel interstate or overseas to have that done. So with that in mind, I suppose going back to the issue that I've raised many times about the maturity aspect of the repair supply chain, in that whilst there are a heap of people out there that are appropriately trained to work on cars that have existed in some form for 20 or 30 years, the electric vehicles have only entered the market much more recently, and just appropriate numbers of people haven't been trained yet.
So I read a stat the other day that post-COVID, Australia is short something like 40,000 mechanic jobs. Are the new guys training? Are they training for EVs specifically? Are they doing for old ICE engines? Or really, is there just a general short of labor across the entire market?
What we observe is that there's actually a shortage of labour across the entire automotive market, whether that be mechanics, whether it be auto electricians, panel beaters and painters. The shortage is certainly quite acute at present. In terms of the shortage relating specifically to electric vehicles, I'd say that's probably reflective of the broader market, to be honest with you.
You know, my dad definitely taught me how to change my oil, fill it with petrol, and take care of my car and all things like that. With EVs, does it mean now with all the tech, the battery and things like that, does it still mean that people can tinker?
They're not advisable in an EV. While I think you could probably go as far as making sure your tyres are inflated and changing your windscreen wiper blades, there are definitely some safety aspects that the consumer and indeed a repairer needs to be aware of when working on an electric vehicle. The vehicles have a super high voltage system that can certainly deliver a shock that it would be able to kill a person without too much problem at all, which is obviously not ideal for someone who doesn't have the appropriate safety equipment and training.
What I heard is if it's an orange wire in an EV, don't touch it. That's the ones with all the high voltage. Is that right?
Definitely. If you have the bonnet up on your car and you see an orange wire, stay well clear of that unless you know exactly what you're doing and you have the appropriate safety equipment and tooling.
So those are the dangerous ones?
Definitely. Very dangerous.
All right. Okay, so let's talk about batteries. A couple of years ago, there was a lot of kind of comments and talks about how if there was a small little bit of that damage on the battery, then, insurers would total loss the entire thing. Is that still happening? Why did that happen? And kind of what are the things at the moment that are going to change to help in terms of safety and battery reuse?
Unfortunately, as has been the case in the past, there is still an issue around information availability from the OEMs. In particular, information around accident damage assessment with respect to batteries seems to be inconsistent across the OEMs, and in some cases is actually unavailable altogether. I think that, coupled with the potentially serious consequences of a previously damaged battery or previously damaged and then repaired battery catching fire, meant that at the moment there's an understandable reluctance within the industry to complete any sort of repair to a battery or a battery case. Following on from that, a battery that's even only slightly damaged or marked is often quoted for replacement following an accident. In an EV, the price of the battery represents a substantial portion of the vehicle's value. It's often the case that a damaged battery would mean a total lost vehicle. That has an adverse impact on the claims cost from an insurer's perspective. As the market and the repair supply chains become more mature and that information that's currently lacking becomes more available, we should sort of see some developments in that area that'll enable us to potentially start looking at repair where previously a replace was an only option, and give us more confidence around doing that safely.
Let's talk about battery recycling. At KOBA, what are we doing for that, and how are we helping move the batteries on?
At the moment, there isn't a whole heap of information around how we're handling batteries that require recycling. I've spoken to a couple of manufacturers over the last 6 months who have obviously told us that they're keen to become involved in an incident where there is a battery that needs recycling, and they can direct us through their supply chains as to the best way to dispose of them. It's definitely an issue that's a high priority for us. Some discussions that we've had recently with OEMs have indicated that they're keen to assist with recycling batteries. I think as time goes on and there's more companies that become involved and interested in helping us to recycle, it'll be beneficial from a sustainability perspective.
So, I mean, my next question, Josh, is what are the good things and the bad things that, people should be looking for in EV insurance? And then, what's different about the KOBA product and how are we helping them with that?
What I think is really important for an EV specific insurance policy is the ability to utilize a repairer who specializes in repairing those types of vehicles. What we're working on in conjunction with KOBA is building out an EV specific network that'll enable us to fix all makes and models of EVs in across all states of Australia.
So what does that mean, an EV specific network? Like who and how, and how do we get access to that?
So at the moment, the gold standard, I suppose, is a repairer that's endorsed by the OEM, the maker of your particular electric vehicle. We wouldn't want an EV going to any old standard repairer. It's important that we appoint a repairer who has the appropriate knowledge, tooling, skills, and training to repair an EV. So with that in mind, we'd be looking at most often repairers who have an OEM endorsement. They're the best place to have an EV repaired. We'll ensure that your car's restored to as close as possible to its pre-accident condition.
And so that generally means the place I bought it, right? So wherever I bought it from, I can probably take it back to them and their service station and things like that.
Probably not specifically the place you bought it, because a lot of the OEMs don't actually run their own repair facilities, but they work in line with their partner networks and shops and businesses that have their endorsement. So usually the endorsement process is a fairly lengthy one on the part of the repairer. They'll have to meet minimum standards of training, and that's ongoing training, not just a sort of set and forget type arrangement. It's tooling, it's all sorts of customer service standards to ensure that you really are getting your vehicle repaired in a way that's compatible with what the manufacturer expects.
Oh, that's exciting. So in many ways, for our customers, I think what it means for us as an internal business is we're hunting for those ones, and anyone who is endorsed by the OEM, the more of those that we can find and add to our network, the smoother the process will go for everyone.
And that's exactly right. Yeah, that's a priority for us.
Josh, thank you so much for your time. It's been great. Really looking forward to working with you guys. One of the key things here at KOBA is not just bringing people into the fold, but it's getting them the education to understand why things cost the way they do, why the time it takes in order to get the car fixed, and ultimately why and how they can get access to a wider network to get their cars repaired. In the end of the day, it's about getting your car back on the road. It's about getting you back in the vehicle that you drive. And it's about making sure customers have the ability to take their cars and get them serviced and repaired wherever they want. So looking forward to working closer with you, Josh, to get the EVs off the ground. Glad to hear that you're training you guys and upskilling pretty aggressively and quickly, and glad to hear that the network is so wide and rich and available for our customers to hit. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Andrew. It was great to speak with you.